So our presentation tonight is from Tom Craighead, who is a bike enthusiast and worked with the city in the past to develop many of the biking and walking paths that you probably already enjoy today. And he's leading Nest efforts to work with the city to make Naperville even more walkable and bikeable. And he'd love for you to get involved. So I will hand it over to Tom now and switch my screen to his presentation. Just give me a second for that.
So I'll just get started while Kathy is switching to the presentation. So as she said, it is all about biking and walking in Naperville, and really three reasons for that. First of all, I think one of the more important is that it should be safe and pleasant to be able to walk and bike in Naperville, because it should be fun to go out and bike and walk. It should, and no matter what level of biking feels right to you. And it should be safe also. And safe is kind of relative too, because it depends on what level, because what's safe for me as an experienced bike rider and going relatively fast is not safe for someone that's kind of a medium bike rider, and certainly not safe for someone who's like 6 or 8 years old. So anyway, and the other thing that of course makes a difference for Nest for sustainability is that it's zero carbon transportation. So here we have our starting slide. So again, it needs to be safe and pleasant, and it's zero carbon transportation, that when you're riding a bike or walking, it's zero carbon. And I think another thing, it's kind of another benefit for Nest is when we're connecting to the community and they are asking, well, what can I do to be part of sustainability? This gives someone something they can do, and it may not move the needle as much as eliminating coal burning electrical plants, but it is something that makes us feel that we are part of the solution and part of Nest, so that it keeps sustainability as part of top of our minds. So next slide, please. We're working with the city of Naperville. I don't know if many of you know that there is a transportation engineering development department, which is responsible for, of course, the streets and the stoplights, the red lights, green lights. Though they have to coordinate a lot, because as you probably know, some of the roads are county roads, some are township roads. And then when you get to the paths, some of those are Naperville Park District, some are, again, Forest Reserve. So it really is a lot to kind of manage. And then some parts, of course, of what we kind of consider Naperville are actually unincorporated Naperville. And so that's really not a part of what we're trying to do. So that we are working, and I'll get to it in just a moment, but the idea again is to replace powered vehicle miles with walking and biking to work, to school, to shop, to run errands. And already it's pretty, one thing we did work on about 10 to 15 years ago was making sure that there are good ways, safe ways to ride your bike to both the Route 59 and the Center Naperville metro stations. So for me also, because I do like to bike, and I started biking probably when I was 4 or 5 years old and haven't stopped. I think it's fun, I think it's healthy. Lots of times I say to people, like, you know, rather than having a coffee at, you know, a coffee shop, let's go have a rolling chat together. So just the idea that it's a way to connect with your neighbors, good for health, good for the city in general, to increase property values. So we're continuing to increase the multi-use paths, and so that we've got safe recreational and transportation use. So next slide, please. So what we've done so far and what we're planning to do is maximize transportation choices, so you can do something besides hopping your car. And also just really interconnecting, because a lot of the challenge right now is to be able to get that last half a mile or a quarter of a mile, because lots of times that's the hardest part, because it took us a long time to get, for example, the BNSF, the railroad, to allow us to go under a place where there was a perfectly good underpass to get under the railroad, but they were just really always feeding us, well, there's too much liability. What happens if we kick up a stone and it hits a person underneath? But finally we can do that. And also sometimes I think you probably maybe have the experience, it's real hard to get across Route 59 with any kind of safety, or even get across 75th or whatever, Ogden. So, then the other idea is just to completely increase the recreational opportunity, contribute to health and safety, and just in general experience community together, so you can get families together to ride too. Because an important thing is that the riding safety and the multi-use paths are really designed for a lot of them, even for children, and for people that are new to biking, or just really aren't that comfortable riding out on the street, or if they are on the street, to make sure that it's really secure. And that's been kind of a problem sometimes when we're working with people, that they are really the kind of what we call an A rider, that they don't really need a pass. So some of the bike clubs that you see out riding in their nice Lycra, they're not really the target audience for this. We're really trying to make sure that everyone is comfortable, including families. And of course, they're wearing helmets. So next. So what we've done so far is, for a nice reason, is one of the women that I worked with about 15 years ago and was kind of just starting on her career and laid out a lot of the paths, is now the assistant director of TAD, Transportation Engineering and Development. So, and all three of the people that I've been working with so far are people that I've worked on before. So we've really got the city resources in place, and I'll talk about it more. But the main thing we need to do is get maybe some people on this call or your friends to join us on the task force. And so we've roughed out a project plan. And one of the things we're going to be asking people to do is activity centers are really the targets again. Libraries, for me, it's really easy to just hop on my bike and get to Trader Joe's or to get to the library. And I feel pretty safe doing that. And I'll ride when it's 40 degrees, but today I went to get my haircut, which oftentimes I will do in the summer on my bike, but not today when it's a little too cold. So next slide. So to get down to what does it mean to be walkable or bikeable? So I found a really great government resource, and it's really designed to be used with a parent and their child to walk to school or walk to the library. And so it's something that you can just use, and it's really kind of fun because it's designed to kind of say, you know, first of all, is there a sidewalk between your home and wherever you're going? Is a sidewalk in good repair? And one of the things is, I'm kind of not real happy when the sidewalk is right next to Washington, where the traffic is maybe 40 miles an hour is the speed limit, and everyone's taking the Naper 5 to 11 miles an hour plus. So they're actually going by you at maybe 40, 50 miles an hour. So that's one thing. Other things are there good crosswalks? And if it's a busy street, are there stoplights? The other thing, of course, is how are the drivers doing? Do they actually kind of honor? Or do you, because if you're standing there waiting to cross, they should stop. Of course, that's not what always happens. Another thing that's kind of interesting is a crosswalk in Illinois is defined as the, from one sidewalk to another sidewalk. The roadway in between is a crosswalk, whether it's marked with paint or not. And that means that cars should be stopping if you're getting ready to cross, but good luck with that. Also just some things about, is it pleasant or not? So that's something that we'd like people to request. And it is a good thing if you've got children that are going, especially to a grade school or even a middle school. So that's kind of defining walkability, is just how safe do you feel? How pleasant is it? Are there overhanging bushes? There's also kind of asking for yourself, especially if you're walking at night, are you visible? And starting to ask questions, are you taking responsibility for your own safety? So some really pretty concrete things. And that's a really nice pamphlet that's, I'll give you the places where you can get that just online and print it out, or I'll send you the PDF. So really kind of a fun thing to do anyway, just on walkability is really pretty easy. You know, you've got a gut sense of what it means, and this maybe gives you a few other ideas. But, you know, because the responsibility is partly the city to keep the engineering safe, and partly drivers, that they're behaving well. And then a lot of it is still you, because even with perfectly good engineering and perfectly good driver behavior, it still comes down to you. And again, especially if you're walking at night, are you visible? So next slide, please. So how bikeable is your community? So again, kind of the same thing. It's, can you bike to work? Even if you want to, can you get to the library? Can you get to a park, either a Naperville park or to one of the forest preserves? And then the other thing is, can you bike with your family? I mean, maybe like the guy on the right, you're pretty accomplished bike rider. I find that as I'm getting older, I'm 70 now, I separated one of my shoulders last winter on a patch of ice. That was totally user error. But I've also had altercations with cars more and more. So the answers really are there is, you kind of know whether it's safe or not, and whether it's pleasant. And for me, it kind of ruins a ride if I felt I was trying to cross Washington with the walk light on, and cars just kept going against my walk light when I had the right of way, and it kind of ruined my ride. So it was no longer pleasant. Another thing, once you get to your destination, are there bike racks? Because one thing we worked on when I was doing this project is passing a city ordinance that requires a number of bike racks, because there are ordinances that require parking lots and parking spaces, a certain number. And now there's a requirement that there are bike racks in a ratio to the parking spaces, but they are kind of grandfathered that in. So, and again, you kind of know whether it's safe or not. And there are some things that we're doing that to kind of gather more of a checklist. And again, also it's kind of, first of all, is it safely engineered? And most of, I think, the ones that are designated as bike routes, either on street or multi-use paths, are relatively safe. Though I think that the one that was recently done at 248th, they're looking at kind of redoing it. I think it just gets too close to a really fast street. And it has some curves that you have to navigate. And so I think it's kind of poorly engineered. And I know a couple other people have commented on that too. But then again, the next thing is, are the cars really obeying the law, and just really even just keeping it safe for you? And then the third thing, of course, the third variable is you. I found one time I came very close to getting hit by a car, and then a couple of older guys on bikes that were wearing like fluorescent colored tops and had flashing LED lights kind of told me, you know, it's really your fault because you were dressed on a gray day in a gray top and you didn't have any flashing lights. And so they convinced me, they won me over. And now that I wear a kind of like a construction worker's t-shirt over everything and have flashing lights, I'm kind of surprised that the cars are actually behaving better when they see me. Surprise, surprise. So just again, just in thinking about walking and biking, you kind of know whether it's safe, It's harder to tell when you're just looking at a plan, but when you're actually out there, I think you'll kind of know. And again, I'm going to be asking for volunteers to join the committee. And it's good to go out just riding with someone and just talk it over with them. So anyway, next, I think I've got about 8 minutes or so left. So here's the final pitch, is that we were talking about, so they just had a question in the chat that Jody is asking, what is safe? I guess I thought that was intuitively obvious. When I feel I have to jam on the brakes, as I did a couple of weeks ago, because I was down near Knock Knolls, and like this was Knock Knolls. So I was trying to cross Royce Road. I was on Royce Road crossing Washington, and it has a left lead, a left arrow for the people from Royce Road. And then that arrow goes off and the walk light goes on, and I should feel that it's safe, meaning I'm not going to get hit by a car. I define safety as not getting hit by a car, or having to take evasive action so I lose control of my bike and run into a tree. So I think that that's what safety means when I'm threatened by a car. And I have sometimes, a couple of times, I've just run off the road on a tree because I went too fast on a curve. But I think safe, it just means I don't feel threatened by a car, or I feel that the bike path or road has been engineered so that I don't feel that I'm going at the same time. So there are a lot of definitions, because one thing that we learned when we were working with the city before is that they educated us and we educated ourselves on a lot of things. Like there are things, for example, that the Park District has not obeyed, that signs of any kind need to be set off from the bike path, so that if you lose kind of control and are wobbling a bit when you're at the edge of the pavement, that you don't crash into a sign. And I tried to talk to them about moving the signs off, but they haven't. So far, it's falling on deaf ears. So that's unsafe. So Jody just said something about the MODAF. So yeah, so MODAF is kind of interesting. So you have a bike lane, and I actually drive that pretty often. It's not bike icons, it's actually a bike lane. So I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, Jody. So maybe you wanted to elaborate verbally?
Yeah, so when they just did MODAF, when they just redid MODAF from Washington to 75th Street, the bike lane that was put in, I'm using, let's see.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
So the bike lane that was put in, that was called a bike lane, all they did was spray paint biking icons on the road, on the sides of the road. There's not even a line demarcating an actual bike lane like there is on MODAF going south.
From 75th.
From 75th Street. It's not even that, which I also do not consider safe. So, but if that's our idea of bike lanes and safe bike lanes in our community, I think we need some standardization and some discussion around what's considered safe.
Yeah, so that's a great point, because the ones going from 75th on MODAF going south is a bike lane, because it's marked as a lane. And that's something that I think, getting back to the discussion, I would not take my 5-year-old granddaughter. She's a maniac when she rides her bike. She's really, really a good rider, but I would not take her. And the only people I see riding on that are really experienced riders. Mm-hmm. So it's not. And as Kath just said, the bike lanes disappear when there's a left turn lane, because there's not enough space to have left turn lanes, through lanes, and a bike lane. So that's just was a compromise. And I didn't have anything to do with engineering that, but that's just kind of the way it is. I still ride on that, and because again, I try to stay visible, and I consider myself kind of an experienced enough rider that I would do it. What they're doing with the icons, they're called sharos. It's kind of share arrow. And again, it's something that you're taking your responsibility for your safety. And so safe is a relative term. And again, it's something that we worked on, and we're getting a little down in the weeds, but the classification of an A, B, C rider, and an A is kind of fearless and doesn't really care. And so that's someone that'll go out and ride just about anything. And I used to be kind of that way, but not so much anymore. And then a B rider is okay, but maybe they would ride MODAF or lower MODAF in the lanes or not. And then a C is really just kind of, you know, a young child. So you're right. That's a great point, is that safety is relative. But I would rather have lanes than nothing, because I feel when I'm riding on MODAF, cars do respect me in a way that they won't respect me without those lanes. Because I biked MODAF before the lanes were put in, because the lanes were put in probably 15 years ago, and it made a difference in behavior. And just the engineering and the research shows that cars do respect those kind of lanes more. And even then, they'll stay over or wait some when the bike lanes give out at the left turns. But anyway,
That's
I'm
only
running out
literally
of time,
one of the
so
roads that has a bike lane on it in Naperville.
that's not a
and-
bike lane. You can quit the air quotes.
Yeah,
That's a
it's-
sharo. It's not a line. It's not a lane.
Well, even the one with the, even south MODAF going south with the lane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there needs to be some way to figure out and define what kind of bike lanes do we want here in Naperville before there's, you know, let's go down to ground zero, ground one, because this is a family-oriented community. And if it's not set up for biking with kids, it kind of defeats the purpose. But that's just my opinion.
Well, no. Well, that's something that, again, let me just kind of segue back to
Yeah, sorry, I'll distract
the
you
working
because,
group. Because
yeah, I was
again,
excited for a bike lane on MODAF, on the new MODAF, when I was told there was going to be a bike lane, and then I
No, that's
saw
not a bike lane.
the sharos, and I was just like, this is not a bike lane. So I'm a little hot
No,
about this.
the
one.
sharos kind of help some, but not. But I think that one thing the city has done, because one of the last thing they did, for example, was there's a bridge that's really nice that goes over the east branch of the DuPage, the west branch of the DuPage, from Naperville Boulevard to Washington. And it's, and the city had a lot of just open houses on choosing the design. And it went from being a really narrow thing that you'd really be taking your life in your hands to ride your bike across. I would ride across it on like Sunday mornings at 6. But other than that, but now it's really nice. And Jennifer Cowens, who's now the assistant manager for TED, did a great job. And I think, as someone put into the chat, Krista Murphy, it's just like you have to do, you know, just read the chat. Christina said it better than, you know, I can. Lots of times you just, you know, they aren't doing any work on MODAF. The time is to do it is when you really are in a major reconstruction or new construction. And other than that, they did a great job on MODAF. So anyway, I think we need to close because I've exceeded my time. But let me just really make a pitch. If you really care, and first of all, keep track of what the city is doing. And that's the job of this committee too, is keep track of what's going on. And I'll try and alert people, especially in Nest. And that's the time to do it, is before the paint is on the road, before the engineering is done. But even better is to, I don't want to be doing this all by myself. I want different voices like Jody and Christina to be working on this. And I really learned a lot when I first, anyway, join the group and have a voice. Send me emails. So we really like people to make the commitment to join this group. And you don't have to be a member of NEST, and you don't have to do it yourself. Maybe you can ask your spouse, or the other thing is to really have high schoolers to be that. And also to make sure we're diverse in a lot of different ways. Obviously gender, obviously age. The other thing is just a last thing. A lot of the people that need alternative transportation don't necessarily live in Naperville, but they work in Naperville. And I think if you kind of look on sometimes the people that are riding their bikes like early morning or late at night, they're diverse. Let's just leave it at that. We want to think about them too, and that's what I'm thinking. Is some of the places that I was thinking about was just kind of nice suburban people going out for a ride with their families, but now I'm thinking about this, making it for transportation and thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion too. So anyway, I need to draw it to a close, but email us with your ideas and questions, and especially on the safety, because I think Jody and others have really said it's relative. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Tom. One of the things that stuck out to me was this idea of doing these checklists and getting, a variety of different people in different parts of the city to get involved in doing those checklists. So another maybe volunteer need for this would be for somebody to come up with a campaign to publicize that, like you would do like a citizen science project or a BioBlitz kind of thing, but for bikeability and walkability. So like if anybody on this Zoom or anybody like that would be kind of their thing to publicize, that would be another way to get involved. So, and also Tom, I would say reach out to Marilyn, our webmaster, and get those checklists up on our website too would be a good thing.
Okay, great. And then just one last thing is, it's people were talking about riding on the sidewalk. It's completely legal to ride on the sidewalk, except in the downtown business area, where it's illegal by local provision, local law. But otherwise, you can ride on the sidewalks. And some sidewalks have been made, like across Bailey, wide enough to ride. And of course, you just have to be extra vigilant about pedestrians. But if somebody tells you you can't ride on the sidewalk, they're wrong.
All right, that was great. Thanks so much, Tom.